Story time. My mom died of lung cancer that metastasized to her liver. My father died from prostate cancer 6 weeks later. And my 42-year-old brother died from a massive heart attack 3 months after our father died. But let me tell you what happened. So my mom and I never had a great relationship. Actually, never had much of a relationship. We had our moments. But whenever I was with my mom, I couldn't get enough of her. But I held on to a lot of anger because of things that happened. Like, my mom never raised me. Her grandmother raised me, my great-grandmother, Jettie Lee. Oh, and I'm Creasy, Jettie Lee's grandbaby. So I held my mom to a standard that I couldn't even meet. Like, I had this unforgiveness of her that God didn't even have of me. And I felt like because her absence in my life or how she treated me, that she owed me. She owed me. I don't know what I felt she owed me, but I just had a lot of unforgiveness in my heart. But that all changed. During the time, I had just got married 3 months prior to finding out that my mom had cancer. Yeah, it was exactly 3 months. So, and I might skip around because I want to give you guys some important tidbits of this story. So I was sitting at home one night and one of my younger sisters called and she was hysterical. And I'm like, what's going on? And then she tells me the bad news. This is one of my younger sisters that's an RN, beautiful, smart girl. And she tells me that our mom called her and said that she was bleeding from the mouth. And my sister, but my mom thought maybe it was the medication she was taking because she had some health issues. And my sister told her to go straight to the ER. Well, at the ER, they ran tests on our mom, and the test results showed lung cancer. And the doctor told her that with chemo, without chemo, she had about 6 months to live. With chemo, she was looking at about 12 months to live. And my mama told my sister that she wasn't going to get chemo, which was the added thing that had my sister hysterical. So I said, okay, I'll call and talk to her. Call my mom, and we had our nicknames for each other. She called me Peachy, and I called her Sugar. So I said, Sugar, what's going on? And she said, Peachy, did you hear the bad news? I said, I heard the news. I couldn't even say bad. And I also heard that you're refusing chemo. And she said she just didn't want to suffer. So I said, we have to respect your decision, but would you at least try? Would you just fight to live for you? I know you're not ready to leave this earth, and we're not ready for you to leave. And she said, Sugar, Peachy, I fight. And it's funny, this shirt, I'm doing laundry, and this shirt pops up. She said she would fight as long as she doesn't feel she's suffering. I said, that's fair enough. So my sister, the one who's the nurse, when I tell you this girl, she spearheaded this thing. She found an oncologist, a great oncologist. My mom was living out of state. She had my mom move back in the state where we live, Florida. And her first oncologist appointment, my sister and I went. I went with them. It's my sister and I with our mom. And my mom had so much life in her. And she would say, she would constantly tell us that she felt the same. She didn't feel sick, and she felt like she was going to beat it, and she was going to be a testimonial to other people with cancer. But she didn't make it. So just to give you a little backdrop, my mom had actually been diagnosed with cancer I'm going to say 8+ years, maybe 10 years earlier. But she only told her siblings, and she swore them to secrecy. She was even getting some trial therapy of some sort, trial drugs or whatever, but we didn't know this until after her death. So it explains how my mom would do little things to give us memories. I know she was doing things to give me memories. Doing this, before we found out my mom had cancer, I was planning my wedding. And this was during one of our good terms. My mom and I would get together at least, we would try to get together once a month, and we would either have lunch or dinner. So this particular Saturday, I had to go do a try-on at the bridal shop. And I told my mom that I was probably going to be a little late picking her up for our lunch date because I had to do a try-on. And she said, "Oh, I want to go with you, Peachy." And I said, "You live like 15 minutes out the way, and we're going to have lunch on your side of town." She goes, "Oh, I really wanted to go. I really want to go." So I said, "You know what? I'll come pick you up." Went and picked my mom up. We went to the bridal shop. And she was so excited. Like, she was asking the attendant to take our pictures, and she was helping me with my dress. And I was like, wow, this feels really good. My mom is an active part of my wedding. But my mom knew that she was giving me some final memories. And during the planning, she asked me if she could pick my first dance song. And it was a song by Kiki and, oh my God, what's the guy's name? But it was You and I. That was the song. And I had already picked the first song, so I said, well, I've already picked the first song. My fiance and I had already picked our first song, and she said, "Teresa, this would mean so much to me." So I went to my fiance and I said, "My mom wants to pick our first song." He was okay with it. He said, "Okay, it's fine." She picked the first song, You and I. Again, she knew that she was giving me some final memories. And at my wedding, oh my God, during the first dance song, she was out on the floor. She didn't get on the stage, but she was just so overjoyed, just smiling, laughter, and even some tears. At one point, I thought she was going to come on the dance floor, and my sisters and I later were laughing like, "Darn, you saw how your mom was acting? Like, we thought she was going to go out on the dance floor." And I said, yeah, I guess she was just overjoyed. But again, my mom knew that she was giving me some final memories. So we go back to when we found out that she had cancer. My sister, my mom moved back to Florida, and we started going to her therapy, her chemo appointments. And afterwards, most of the time, we would go out and have lunch or something. One day, we went to one of her favorite places, because my mom was a foodie. She loved eating. Never met a plate of food that she didn't like. She was just greedy. We called her greedy. And we were at Golden Corral, one of her favorite places. And she had all this food piled on a plate. And everything that she would eat, she would say, they've changed this recipe. It doesn't taste the same. Her favorite foods, like she had chicken, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, corn. She just had some of everything. She had a variety plate, chicken, and everything she would say, she would take a bite and she would say, this just don't taste the same. Does this food taste the same to y'all? And we were like, they probably did change the recipe. And my sister and I looked at each other, but we knew something was going on. So it was nearing the end for her. She died actually 1 month after the 1 year the doctor had given her. And this was during the final days. My sister said, we're not putting her in hospice. Hospice came to us, my sister's house. They brought the hospice bed in. They had a nurse coming in. And I remember the hospice nurse saying to us, let her have whatever she wants. And she was taking medications and she had food restrictions. But when the doctor said, let her have whatever she wants, she looked at, the nurse, when the nurse said, let her have whatever she wants, she looked at the nurse and she asked the nurse if it was the end of the road for her. And the nurse said, it is. But even prior to that, this was like maybe 2 weeks before she died. This was on the 2-week period before she died. And I was at my sister's house one day. My sister was going out with her daughter. And I told her that I would come over and sit with our mom. And she said, you know what, Peachy? I said, what, sugar? She said, it felt like, her insides felt like somebody was going room by room, turning lights off. And I asked if she was in pain. And she said, not really, but the night before, she didn't think she was gonna live to see another day. And I said, well, what happened? And she said, the lights are being turned off room by room. And then she said her older sister had died some years prior. And she said her sister was knocking at the door. So I'm thinking one of her sisters came to visit her. I said, who came to visit you? And when she said the sister's name, I said, well, how could she come? She's not alive. She's not here with us anymore. She said, I know that, but she was at the door. So I said, well, did you let her in? She said, no. So I said, how did you know it was her? She said, she felt her spirit, so she knew it was her. That broke my heart. And then another visit, because I worked on the side of town where my sister lived. My mom was living with her during this whole ordeal. And one day I went over there after work. I would actually go over there to see her. I would see her the morning before going to work, and I would go see her on my way home from work, actually, because now I'm terrified. Like, if I don't go see her this morning, what if when I get off work she's gone? Or if I don't go see her when I get off work, what if the next morning she's gone? And then I would get her on the weekends. I would get her on the weekends when she would come. She had this fear of being away from my sister, because my sister was a nurse, so she felt like if something were to happen to her, my sister would know what to do. And she had a little fear. She was very apprehensive about leaving the presence of my sister. So but she wanted to be with me, and she would still come. And I remember I went over there one day to get her, and when I opened the door, she was walking down the hall, and she just started singing. Actually, I have the video. She just started singing to me, just singing. She just started singing, and my mom could sing, like she could sing, and it sounded so angelic. I was like, wow, so somebody's having a good day. And so that was just a moment, just another moment that I would cherish always. But when my mom was nearing her death, like this is a days before, And we were sitting in, I was lying in bed with her. And she said, let's plan the funeral. And I said, I don't want to plan a funeral. She goes, let me tell you what I want. She said she wanted a blue dress, a royal blue dress, because blue is royal. And she said, don't get silk, because silk makes me sweat. And I said, sugar, if you dead, how you gonna know you sweating? She says, don't get silk. Do not get silk. So I said, okay, I won't get silk. And then she told me how she wanted her hair. She was describing this style, and my mom had really tiny hair. And I said, sugar, you don't have enough hair for that style. And she said, don't put no weave in my head because I don't like weave. I said, well, how you supposed to get that style? You don't have enough hair for a style like that. She said, well, they better make it enough. And I just started laughing. So one day, the hospice nurse was there. And he came in the room and he examined her and everything. And I was in bed with her this particular day, and she said, Peachy, hold me. So I was holding her. Now my mom was a prankster. My mom was a prankster too, even to the end. And I was holding her, and she said, what would you do if this was it right now? And I said, I'm just gonna hold you, but my heart was thumping. I'm like, please, God, don't let this be the moment. I don't want this. So she goes silent. Less than a minute later, she's like, Peachy. I'm like, what? I said, yes, sugar. You know what I want? I said, what? I want some double stuffed Oreo cookies. I said, you just, okay, I'll go get them. So I go up to the store. I get some double stuffed Oreo cookies. I bring them back to her. She eats one. She takes a bite out of one. And she says, oh, they're too sweet. Oh, they made these cookies real sweet. So she said, put them in the refrigerator for me. So I asked her if I could have some. She said, you can have some, but don't eat all my cookies. I said, I won't. So I got some of the cookies, put the rest in the refrigerator. And the next day, they brought the hospice bed, and my sister wanted the bed in the living room. She didn't want her in the room to feel isolated. And it was this song. When my mom and I used to get together, we would go riding. We would just do some of everything. And my mom could sing. My mom really could sing. And I would play a song, like if a song came on the radio, or if I wanted her to play a certain song, I would put my phone on YouTube, and I would say, sing this song. And she would say, oh, I don't know those lyrics. I said, if you don't sing the song, you got to get out of my car. And she would start singing the song. And she loved the Emotions. And it was this song by the Emotions called, my mind drew a blank. Have you been feeling too shiny? Something like that. And now she's on her deathbed to the point where her eyes were, she could barely keep her eyes open. And I played the song, and she was singing the song. And when it got to my part, because we would split the song, and she said, Peachy, don't mess up this song. And I said, I won't. And and my mom she's on her deathbed, and we're singing this song. Let me tell you something. That day, she told me that it was time. She asked me, did I get her dress? Did I get her stuff? I said, you want gloves? She said, yeah. She said, I've never had gloves. She said, give me some pearl earrings. They don't have to be real pearls. They just look like pearls. I've never had pearls. She said, I want to look my best. I went and got my mom's dress. My husband took me to the mall. It was so much for me. I couldn't even, I was just overwhelmed. And he started picking out dresses for her. And he's like, he would come over with some dresses. And he said, what do you think about that? I said, no, she wouldn't like that dress there. Finally, he chose a dress, and I said she would love that dress. And by the time we got back to my sister's house, she wasn't dead yet, unalive yet. But she was no longer conscious. She was no longer alert. And I said, Sugar, I got your dress. Open your eyes and look at it and tell me if this is what you want. And she couldn't open her eyes. But before she got to that point, she started saying, she's ready, she's ready. She's not scared, she's not scared, she's ready. And I said, stop saying that, because she just kept saying it. She would look at me and she would say, she's ready, she's ready, she's ready. I said, stop saying that. But you know what was also weird? My mom would look at me and say, oh, look at my baby, look at my newborn baby. And she would take my hand and smell my hand, and she would say, oh, I love the way babies smell. And I asked her, I was like, when you look at me, do you see a baby? She says, yes, you're my newborn baby. And my sister jokingly said, that big old rusted thing? She said, no, this is my newborn baby. And I really needed that. And it's really weird because when I was 2 weeks old, I went to live, my father took me to live with my great grandmother. But that's going to be another video, just explaining to you how all of that came about. And my mom never raised me. Even during the times when I tried to stay with my mom, it never had a good outcome. But she saw me as her baby. I just thought that was weird. But the day that she died, my Lord, when I tell you all the things that I had been so angry about, all that crap went down the drain. Oh, all of that went down the drain. Everything that I was angry with her about. And then it was like God reveals to me, and he said, you expected a forgiveness from her that I don't even expect from you. You expected a perfection from her that I don't even expect from you. You held her to a standard that I don't even hold you to. When I tell you, oh, you know, she said, one day when you talk about me, it's going to bring more smiles and tears. And it's been 7 years. For the most part, I can't talk about her without it bringing tears. But sometimes it does, because now I think maybe I have some guilt. I should have cut her more slack. I realize now that I should have been more forgiving. I should have just allowed her to be the human person that made bad choices. I may have not made her choices, but I too have made choices that weren't the best. And we all have. But I think what we do when we don't do the things that someone else does, we feel like now we're standing in a position where we can be judgmental. And losing my mom taught me just to see things a little differently. And but we got it right in the end. As a matter of fact, before when during the planning of my wedding, my fiance, he said, make sure you invite your mom to the wedding. And I said, she probably won't come anyway because we were on bad terms. And I can't even remember why. And he said, that's not up to you to decide. You invite her to this wedding. And I spoke with my sister about it. I was like, you think I should? She said, you better. And I said, but she probably won't come and then I'm going to feel hurt. She goes, I'd rather you be hurt because she chose not to come than you to be hurt because you chose not to invite her. And when I tell you those memories I have from my mom at my wedding are priceless. Oh. So after my mom died, my father was my husband, of course, was an amazing comfort to me. And I remember talking to my father one day and I said, Dad, I'm so glad I still have you. And he said, yes, sweetheart, you do. My father didn't even tell anybody that he was in the last stages of losing his battle with prostate cancer. And 6 weeks after my mom's death, my father died. So all over again, not even near healing from the loss of my mom and my dad passed. I can't even say starting to heal and all over again because I was in the midst of my grieving of the loss of my mom. So now I'm dealing with the loss of my father. Barely 3 months after losing my father, my 42-year-old brother died from a massive heart attack. When I tell you, this has been traumatic. This healing process has been traumatic, but I keep pushing through. So, this is my second story time. I'm gonna end this video so that I can go and I think I need a good cry. And I don't want y'all to see how I'm getting ready to be crying and snotting on camera. But thank you for joining my story time. This is, as I said, this is the second one. I will be doing story time once a week. Either I will post on a Friday or a Saturday. So I hope you enjoyed my story time. I hope you will comment if you're dealing with or you've ever dealt with the loss of someone you love dearly. Just comment how you dealt with the loss, or just whatever you want to comment. Just feel free to comment. I hope you subscribe to my channel. I just hope to see you as a part of Creasy Jetty Lee's Grandbabies channel. Enjoy your day.